Does the Xiaomi 11T camera shoot better photos and videos than the Poco F3? Let's compare 4 categories for the Xiaomi 11T vs Poco F3 camera test. 11T stock camera vs GCam, 11T stock cam versus F3 stock cam, 11T GCam vs F3 GCam, and lastly a video comparison using the stock cameras, GCam, and Filmic Pro. This first flower bush shot from the Xiaomi 11T stock camera app and a recent GCam port from developer BSG look pretty similar, but the waveform shows that GCam is a bit more saturated and contrasty. Plus it keeps the white flower petals from clipping in the highlights, unlike the stock cam. GCam wins this van sky shot since it's much brighter in the shadows while not clipping in the sky. If I could only take one thing with me to a deserted island, it would be these cookies. And sure, I wouldn't live long, but I'd be really happy. And besides being deadly delicious, both apps perform well here. I wish GCam was brighter with this flower shot, and I want the stock camera to stop blowing out the highlights. You know what? Both lose this round. The Xiaomi 11T and Poco F3 handle the colorful umbrella pretty well, but if I had to choose, I'd say GCam looks better. Someone tell me how this happens to a tree. It's growing straight and normal, then skirt. But for photo quality, I think this is a tie. I love how GCam is able to retain the shadows and the grass and tree in this beautiful dumpster shot. I know this is some sort of poisonous plant, but I can't prove that, and GCam is better detailed here and outputs a generally cooler image. On to pictures of me, and this shot from the main rear camera looks rough on the stock Xiaomi camera app, washed out and just not sharp. The front-facing selfie camera looks simultaneously better and worse from the stock app. Improved color and focus, yet somehow more unnatural, especially compared to GCam, which looks okay but not great. Here's portrait mode from the main rear camera. GCam crops in a lot, and there is a slight halo around me, but nothing terrible. The stock camera struggles again. The selfie camera in portrait mode is still creepy when you use the stock app, and GCam looks decent enough besides the blown out sky. Now we move into night mode shots, and they look awful, but I did shoot these in a very dark room, and it's a worst case scenario. The stock camera goes grainy but sharper. GCam does just the opposite, and neither are usable. Oddly enough, the selfie camera does a nearly acceptable job with GCam, but the stock camera still looks dreadful. My dog-shaped sloth looks more crisp and brighter from the stock camera, and I actually prefer it this time. This night shot with the car really comes down to what you like. As usual, GCam is less noisy, but also lacks detail. The stock app does precisely the opposite. Same goes for the fire hydrant, but I think the stock camera wins again here. Same story for this clock. The brightness and detail from the stock app is just better than GCam. Before we get into the Xiaomi 11T vs Poco F3 comparison and video performance test, if you're finding this video helpful, please give it a like. I genuinely appreciate it. Between the 11T's 108 megapixel main sensor and the F3's 48 megapixel sensor, there are some differences, like how the F3 produces a much bluer van and sky here, or how the 11T can keep everything a bit brighter. The deadly delicious cookies look similar. Still delicious, still deadly. From the bokeh effect to the color, these two phones see this flower scene very differently, and I think the 11T looks much more pleasing this time since it's not as contrasty. The 11T also wins with the umbrella since it's able to make the colors pop a bit more than the F3. Too blue again from the F3 for this beautiful dumpster shot. The F3 definitely does a better job with this picture of me from the main rear camera. And the same applies to the selfie cam. I didn't know it, but I must have put on lipstick before taking this portrait mode picture with the Poco F3's main rear camera. Both the 11T and the F3 don't do a great job here. Portrait mode using the selfie camera. Both are downright terrible with night photos of me from the main rear camera. Surprisingly, the situation kinda improves with the selfie camera, but both continue to look atrocious. Hey, my sloth woke up for this one, and I think I prefer the F3 since it's warmer this time. Again, this silver car shot comes down to preference. The F3 is too blue for me, but the 11T is also quite noisy in the sky. The F3 blues out for sure on this fire hydrant. Mi 11T wins here. Both do a pretty good job with this clock scene. Now let's compare how GCam performs on each device. I use the same GCam port for both, and there's a link in the description, but you should know that there are better performing ports for each device. I just used one port to be fair for testing purposes. And the F3 is a little too blue for this car sky shot, but it is slightly brighter than the 11T. I'd call this one a tie. The cookies continue to be deadly delicious, and both phones perform in a similar fashion. This other flower shot is almost too close to call, but at the moment, I prefer the bokeh on the 11T. I'd say the 11T is more color accurate on this umbrella shot. The yellow piece on the F3 looks far too green to be correct. I mean, if my banana was that yellow, I'd say it wasn't ripe enough. Pro tip. A final look at this splendid dumpster, and the F3 loses once again because of its overly cool color temperature. Well, how do I look? The answer is better on the 11T. The F3 basically missed focus here since it thought the fence was much more interesting instead of, my face, which hurts, honestly. And the selfie cameras are much closer, and I might give the edge to the Xiaomi 11T, again, since it's noticeably brighter. Both crop like crazy in portrait mode, and on the main rear cameras, I actually like the F3 better since it doesn't make my face overly red. For portrait mode on the selfie camera, I again prefer the F3. It's darker than the 11T, but the 11T just looks too washed out this time. GCam really helps both devices in night mode for human subjects, but the main rear camera on the F3 wins here since it's both brighter and sharper. The selfie camera in night mode is more of a toss-up, with the 11T looking much brighter and less noisy, and like I'm some sort of doll, or just a really boring action figure. The F3 looks a bit sharper, but too noisy. I definitely prefer Sloth Dog on the F3. He's brighter and a little more detailed. The 11T wins this night shot of the silver car. The F3 is just way off on color again. Same story with the hydrant. The F3 comes back to win this clock shot though, capturing a whiter white and just a brighter scene overall. Here's a video sample from the 11T comparing the stock camera, GCam, and Filmic Pro. Here is the Xiaomi GCam selfie, Filmic 11T. The main camera one more time looking at the umbrella. And here's the same series of tests with the Poco F3. Stock cam, GCam on the F3. Hey, yeah. Alright, so Poco F3, Filmic. This is more interesting. 11T stock versus F3 stock. Both basically run the same camera app, by the way, so the differences you see are down to camera hardware and the image signal processors from the 11T's Mediatek Dimensity 1200 chip versus the Poco Snapdragon 870. Here is the Xiaomi 11T. I almost forgot which phone I was using. How does the same GCam port perform on both? GCam on the F3. Selfie 11T. Lastly, take a look at Filmic. Also, here are the max settings that are available through Filmic Pro on both devices, and this is what I shot at. Hey, Filmic 11T. Alright, so Poco F3, Filmic. I also tested both with MotionCam Pro, and the F3 can shoot raw video pretty well with it. In fact, I already made a video about that, which I'll link in the description. But the 11T does not perform well. You have to crop the sensor to avoid serious frame drops. And yes, the extended RAM option was disabled on both devices. So my conclusion is that both cameras have their weak points, but the 11T is generally better, particularly with GCam for images and Filmic Pro for video, as long as you shoot with a tripod or a gimbal. But obviously the Poco F3 isn't that far behind generally, and if you can use a GCam port that's better suited for that device, you'll definitely get better images. So if you're looking to buy either one of these devices, I would check prices from Wireless Place first, since they have Poco and Xiaomi devices, as well as phones from Google, Samsung, OnePlus, and more. I've bought a few phones from Wireless Place, and they always ship fast and ship internationally. They have great prices and include a US adapter for the charger if you need it. Please use my discount code PC10 when you check out. If you want to support the channel or just want to save a little money, a link to the site is in the description. My full comparison review of both devices is coming out soon, and I'll link it right here when it does. But please subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and feel free to comment with any questions, concerns, family recipes, etc. I'll provide a response. Send cookie recipes.